Hello and welcome to the Login Studios here in Dorset for this week's episode of the Leading Lives podcast. Here in Dorset, one of the leading attractions for children is Farmer Palmer's. And I'm delighted that today joining me is Sandra Palmer-Snellin, one of the joint owners. Hello, Sandra. How are you today?
Great, thanks very much.
Well, thanks for coming in. It's always a bit daunting to go on camera for the first time in ages, isn't it? Tell me a little bit about Farmer Palmer's.
Been here 26 years, family diversified farm. What more do you want to know?
As you just said, you've been established a long time. How did you have the idea to open this attraction?
The credit has to go to my brother, who was milking cows at 4 a.m. in the morning and went, not getting a lot of laughter back from the girls. What else can I do? And he heard another farm park advertised on the radio, followed that little worm down the hole, and here we are.
So who is Farmer Palmer's actually intended for?
We entertain families with children 8 years and under, and keeping it simple is the key.
School visits are a major part of the experience. How important are they to you as a business?
Incredible, actually, to watch children interact and learn just brings a smile to my face all the time.
How do the schools actually get in touch with you and book these visits?
We've got a comprehensive website, and everything from there, everything you need, will be found on farmpartners.co.uk.
The visitors that you get from schools, are they just local schools or do they come from far and wide?
They tend to travel throughout the BCP and Dorset Council conurbations. It's more about hiring a coach and getting everybody here nowadays.
But it's not just schools that come. I mean, there's other groups and also small families.
Yeah, we have mums and toddler type groups, and we have all sorts of different groups that want to come out for a day out.
Sustainability plays a big part in what you do.
We've been looking after the land from day one, and making sure that we look after that for the future of the children is built into everything we do, with solar panels, biomass boiler, you name it. We've even got a condiment cow where you can squeeze tomato sauce out of the udders.
Really? If you're of a mind to. So, but you said from day one, but day one is multi-generation, isn't it? Is it not?
Yeah, great-grandfather bought the farm when the the owners then couldn't pay the inheritance tax.
We're going to come on to that.
And Dad went to agricultural college, and then he farmed. He's 88 now and still going strong.
Still going strong at 88, working hard.
He loves a bit of hedge cutting, and it's our job to keep him going.
You have a range of animals on site. Let's have a look at these in a bit more detail. Let's start with the cows.
Okay. So due to give birth yesterday is our cow whose name on the passport is Fanny May.
Right.
She does the milking demos, and she's a lady in waiting right now.
Well, I think, as you might know, I mentioned earlier, just before we started recording, actually, that my first grandchild was born at the weekend.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that's little Theo. So there's a name for your cow there, Theo. So we'll be checking up on that. As well as the cows, how many cows have you actually got?
Well, we've just got 2 cows there that we have day to day. We've got on the farmland extra farm animals, but farm park, 2 cows.
And those ones that are in the wider farm, what type are they and what are they?
We've got little Dexters, which do come and visit the farm park in the summer, etc. But yeah, they're really cute. They're smaller.
Birds as well.
Well, yeah, what have we got? We have got a rhea, which is like an emu. We've got finches, and we've got parakeets. We've got lots of different... Oh, and then your standard. Okay, how many do you want? Ducks, chickens, you name it.
Yeah.
We've probably got it.
A latest addition, I think in 2023, if my memory serves me correctly, alpacas?
Oh, yeah, they're really cute, fluffy. Got an opinion. The ears go back, look out, because there might be a little bit of spit coming your way. But
really?
Generally, they're really well behaved.
Yeah, it's just like Rod, one of my staff, actually, for those of you who know Rod. I'm joking.
But no, they're lovely animals.
And But they all look the same, the alpacas. How
You
do
can
you
have
tell them
brown,
apart?
you've got black, you've got white, they've got big eyes, they've got smaller, they've got their own personalities, big
Yeah.
time.
And another attraction that you've got is pig racing.
Yes. They
That
don't,
sounds like fun.
they don't like racing in the wet though. Pigs are quite particular. So we've trained some goats to do that as well so that they can help each other out as and when. But
Right.
yeah, pig racing, out the pen, up the side, up the end. Who's going to win? Racing Rosie, you put a little bit of a side bet on, no money, and work out which pig's coming in first.
I know that they don't race against each other. Excuse me. But who's faster than the pigs or the goats?
Well, if the pigs haven't got too much food on board, they're quite quick. But I've never tried putting the two together, to be honest. And
There you see,
you
there's
know,
an idea for another
it
part
is
of the attraction.
perfect. And by the time they've had breakfast and lunch and dinner, you see, the pigs do tend to put on a bit of weight.
Are they a special breed of pigs that you use?
We have coon pigs. Sometimes we'll have saddlebacks. It depends. But yeah, we tend to breed some ourselves.
So, out of all of these attractions, which do you think is the most popular with the kids?
Well, I'd probably be heading indoors for guinea pigs.
Okay.
Although the goat feeding's great because goats are great fun. So, but yeah, sitting in there, being able to stroke a guinea pig's so cute.
Whilst all this is going on, what about parents? Is there somewhere they can grab a snack or a drink or something?
Oh, Keris and her team run the Hen House restaurant and they make all the food from scratch, which we're really proud of, and all the cakes from scratch. And yeah, we've got about 80 seats in there. It's surprising.
And you also cater for children's parties.
Yeah, that absolutely. If parents don't want to do the work and don't want to do the clearing up afterwards, come and you can spend the whole day with us. That's the thing I think is the most amazing because there's a lot of places you can go for 2 hours.
Now, this podcast is being recorded right at the beginning of December 2024, but it'll be a week or so before it's released. And we've just entered your period of Twilight Christmas. Tell me all about
Starting
that.
to look a lot like Christmas. Yeah, so our Twilight, I have to say, are all sold out, which is amazing. But during the day, we have a system where people can come in and then they choose to go and see Farmer Christmas.
Ah,
Oh my goodness! And the team have created the most amazing and enchanting barn.
tell me a bit more.
It gets converted, and there's everything from sparkly lights to Mrs. Claus to singing reindeer to donkeys. The journey through it, yeah, and of course there's a present at the end because every child wants a present.
That's right. So if people are looking at this now, the chances are you're going to be full for this because, like you say, you've already provisionally sold out. Next year, when would they be able to book for Christmas
I think
2025?
that'll probably be the middle of next year. But just to clarify, the Twilight is the evening event, which
Okay.
is sold out. The daytime event currently isn't sold out yet. So the website is the place to go and find out.
Right. So get yourselves down there quickly, everybody. Right. So at certain times of the year, you offer accommodation on site as well, don't you? And there's two different types, I understand.
We've got camping that we do in the summer. We trialled that after COVID, which was quite popular. And the other accommodation you might be referring to is we have got, my brother's got property that he can rent out from time to time.
So is that like a full property or is it like rooms in
A little
property?
bit like a holiday let type property, which is lovely, and it just helps with people that want to come down in the summer, or well, all year round really. But you know, if they want to come to the farm park, but they also want to stay, we can help.
What about facilities for the disabled?
So we take that very seriously. When we built in the first place, everything was done with ramps, wide doorways, because we've also got double pushchairs. So we think about that. Then we think about the team care and how we can help. Everybody that comes is valuable. So, yeah, it's forefront in our mind.
Yeah, that's impressive because I would say that 25, 26 years ago even, and before that when you were building it, not that many businesses thought so far ahead in terms of the disabled facilities.
And I think if you've got people that you know that are also, you know, disabled, it puts you in touch with their needs.
Obviously, we've had the financial crises over the past few years. Ever since COVID, really, things have taken quite a big downturn,
It's
haven't
been a
they?
huge shift.
Yeah. And as a hospitality business, and how on earth have you survived?
Gosh. So in the March, we phoned all the birthday parties and said, don't come. Furloughed all the team. That was a mistake, really, because I would have liked some help. All the other businesses, business partners, we spent time on Zooms, all learning how to do it together, and then reopened in the July in a social. How do you socially distance a farm park?
Yeah.
It was probably the most challenging and best attempt at resilience that I've ever done, and I rose to it and loved it.
And since then, of course, there's been crisis after crisis, really, with like the energy price increases with the war in Ukraine. How difficult is it to run a tourist attraction today?
I think our customers are being squeezed, price sensitive, want the most for their money, and we're being squeezed from underneath because all of our suppliers are having the same problem. So somewhere in the middle, you have to try and cut your cloth so that you're keeping everybody happy.
We'll talk more about labour costs and the effect of the recent budget shortly.
Yeah.
But raw material type costs and energy costs obviously must be of major importance to you. Give me a flavour. How much have they increased by, say, in the last year or so?
Well, I was a bit smart. I like to be ahead of the game. So our electricity, when everyone was complaining that they had 60, 70, 80p a unit, I'd locked it in for 34p a unit. I've now got it in at 21p a unit and locked again. Fixed is the way I like to do business. Then you know where you are.
And how easy was that for you to achieve and locking that in, just for the benefit of other businesses who might want to consider
So
their energy costs?
we belong to the NFU. The NFU have, they scour the market, and we went back to them this time saying, how can you help us? And you have to dedicate that bit of time to find, but, our energy costs, they're huge.
Yeah, I can imagine. How, as a business, do you keep yourself fresh and not stale? Because it must be a constant challenge.
You need to take time to think. You need to take time out and not get burnout, which is easy to happen. Communication.
I think a lot of business owners just can't switch off, can they? I'm definitely guilty of that over the years.
To be fair, my husband will tell you that I'm guilty of that all the time still. But I understand the value of it and networking with other people. So, yeah, I think you need to research. We belong to National Farm Attractions Network. If they've got a Zoom, a podcast, if somebody's got an HR seminar, I try and keep on top of it because it helps you know what's coming around the corner next. And that foresight is huge.
Yeah, it must be, a constant thing of getting your name out and about there. What about social media? How important is that to you?
It's really important because our customers are 90% on their phones. They also, Instagram stories, etc. We're having to evolve with the way they work. And if customers are going there to find out about things, we need to be there.
And have you noticed a shift in the way that people communicate with you, say, over social media? Have you noticed them using different media?
Yeah, we have got different media. I mean, we've always used, funnily enough, TripAdvisor we've noticed has dropped off a bit for attractions. Just one little tiny element that.
So what's the most important one now?
I would say probably Instagram and Facebook, because Facebook is for my generation.
Yeah.
Instagram is for the new mums in their 20s, and that's a bit of a general, but.
Yeah. Farmer Palmer's is still a working farm, isn't it? And farmers have been in the news a lot recently, of course, with the protests in London and probably more planned. What do you think about that?
Farming, we need a voice. We still farm the land, we still look after the hedges, the ditches, make hay, etc. So we are still on the forefront of that. I think some farming families are really struggling to stay engaged because there's no future. They can't see a future. It's a way of life that you love.
Are you seeing through your connections issues with farmers' mental health then as a result of...
It's definitely been a big thing that we've been supporting. I think social media, etc., has been helping youngsters coming in, but I don't have statistics, but I know that actually, it's not good.
So presumably you're not going to think that the government was right to change the rules on inheritance tax.
If you imagine that maybe an average farm potentially makes 40,000 a year, that's supporting husband, wife, maybe the next generation as well.
It's not a lot of money, is it?
They now need to go and find some income to start planning inheritance tax, which they would have on their radar anyway, possibly. But that's expensive.
Yeah, it's because it's not just the actual taxation charge, is it? It's the cost of getting the advice.
That's it. And that advice keeps changing. So people that got advice earlier this year, knew the budget was coming. And I suspect there's a few lines that need crossing out and revamping and reworking.
How is the
but
NFU
it's a commitment
supporting?
you have to do.
Sorry. How is the NFU supporting you in this?
The NFU have been full of advice and support. There's our own accountants, etc., and business advisors, and the NFAN as well. We have a WhatsApp group between us, and when somebody turns around and says, changes they've calculated are going to cost this, it helps. We share knowledge.
Do you think the protests are going to have an effect, or do you think they need to be escalated? I mean, if this was France, for example, they'd be muck spreading and blockading the ports, wouldn't they?
So, yeah, no, I think the tractors to London was brilliant, and but I'm not quite sure as British people we are ever going to be militant, and I don't think we should be. But I think we have to rely on the bodies like the CLA and the NFU and people like that to be our voices for us, because they are there for that reason.
The government have got a very large majority, and what do you think the chances are of them actually listening?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. From their point of view, they're not going to bother unless there's any consequence. And unfortunately, I'm not sure what the consequence for them would be if they listen.
Yeah, and I think it's a very difficult situation because they seem to have hammered a lot of different elements of society, be it elderly people with the winter fuel allowance, and farmers seem to be very much in the firing line there. If farmers have to sell farms to pay inheritance tax, and we'll go into a bit more detail about the numbers in a minute, but what do you think that would have, what effect do you think that would have on the food supply chain in the country?
I believe there are lots of deals going on with importing food that we don't even probably know about. Don't forget, Natural England and DEFRA and lots of different organisations are looking to recover farmland and return them all back to rewilding. We have to leave a 2 or 3 metre gap by every hedge and take it out of food production for wildlife. These things are coming.
So and what's your view on that?
What is the government's goal? How are we going to produce food for this country if we've got ragwort growing in all of our fields?
Yeah, it seems to me like we're shooting ourselves in the foot here.
You know, I'm not against wildlife. We've got the most incredible woodland walk with wildlife abundant.
But we need to eat.
But yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it's disheartening as to how the environmental is a really big thing. Food farming and food production is a big thing. They seem to be at loggerheads, I feel.
And the demands of housing, I wonder where that's going to rear its head. Are more farms likely to be lost forever through being converted to new housing estates?
So new housing, as far as I can see, they all have mitigations for nitrates within the SILS allowance for planning.
So explain a bit more about that.
So when you put in for planning permission, you have to, builders have to make an allowance for certain bits of land that will be left to offset. That was always nitrogen based. They changed the rules this summer and it's now, I think it's phosphorus based. So all of a sudden, although they've said, yeah, we'll build more, they've changed the rules completely.
And you have to keep all kinds of data, don't you, about the nitrogen in your land, the phosphorus in your land?
Yeah, we're sensitive to the fact that we're in a nitrate sensitive zone, and we've got Poole Harbour, which we're hugely proud of, and making sure we look after and protect that. So, we have a raft of legislation and things we have to complete. I mean, if we have to know how much food's going into our animals and how much poop is coming out the other end.
Right.
And we have to calculate that, record it and submit it every year. Who knew that was a thing?
No, that just sounds beyond difficult for me. As somebody who's got no experience in farming whatsoever, I can imagine that's quite a challenge. Now, looking at the inheritance tax situation, the government are very vocal, saying that only about 500 farms across the country will be affected by the inheritance tax rule changes. What they're not quite so loud about saying is that's 500 per year. Now, as I understand it, there's about 200,000 farms across the UK, and the Treasury themselves have said that overall, a quarter of farms will become liable for inheritance tax. The rules are complicated, of course, but do you think that figure's accurate?
I believe it's got to be higher than that. You've only got to look at the value of a tractor, look at the value of a car, look at the value of potentially a farmhouse to run a farm and the buildings, and then you've got to look at the value of your land. And that starts escalating because there is a viable point. You know, anything less than that, and a farm won't even be viable.
Yeah. Some would say, well, you have got the joint ownership rules that allow you to pool your tax-free allowance, which is it about £1 million each per person?
I think it's if husband and wife are running the farm.
Yeah, yours, of course, is brother and sister in your particular case. Do those rules and exemptions still apply to you?
I think at the moment we are just looking at our mum and dad.
Right.
86, 88.
Still working hard, both of them.
Well, yeah, and we're having to look at what happens when they pass, which is not something you really want to be doing, to be honest.
No.
We'll tackle the next generation later.
Farms notoriously make very little profit, most of them, and suddenly they could be faced with a huge inheritance tax bill. How are they going to actually pay that?
Every farmer knows there's inheritance tax. Each land gets, taxed per generation. My grandfather bought our farm originally because the people that owned it couldn't afford the inheritance tax and had to sell the whole farm. If you have to pay your asset rich, cash short, you're going to have to sell off bits of land. It's going to make farms smaller, or you're going to have to sell the whole thing.
The government would argue that you do get this interest-free period. Is it 10 years, I think, where you can pay off the inheritance tax? But as far as I can see, to do that, you've got to be making that profit every year to actually cover those payments.
Every farm's going to be different. Every farm that's got, one child, two children, three children trying to take it forward. Part of the reason we diversified in the first place was because it was the only way our family was going to keep the land and keep it together. And diversification has happened to a lot of farms because they know they'd have gone under otherwise.
It's an incredibly complex situation, and like you say, everyone is different. What advice would you give to farmers currently trying to get to grips with this?
I'm going to be very humble here and say I'm not in a position to give them advice at all, but reach out to the professionals that can help you, because there is quite a lot of free advice out there.
You're doing yourself a disservice, because your advice to reach out and find the advice is actually very good, isn't it? Using professional people.
Yep.
And what kinds of people are out there? I mean, you mentioned the NFU and their resources. Most farmers, I assume, are members of the NFU?
Yep, not necessarily, but you've got, Country Landowners Association, you've got country associations and business. There are a number of different support people out there that are all banging the drum. They've got a lot more power than we have, so we have to filter up through them so that they can go to government on our behalf.
It's important to say that the inheritance tax isn't the only taxation change issue that's going to affect farmers, is it? I mean, you may have seen one of the earlier podcasts when we had Martin Edwards from Julia's House in here, and he was talking about the crippling effect of employers' national insurance rises. In their particular case, they need to find an extra £242,000 a year.
Going to do that? I think so soul destroying for them.
One of my, clients is they're magicians, and maybe they need to bring them on board, because I can't think of any way they're going to easily
Martin's
achieve that.
Very resourceful and very clever.
How are you coping with that rise in employers' NI? What does it mean for you?
Massive spreadsheet,
Yeah.
massive budget prediction, which is being done, by the team, and really we've. NFAN on our WhatsApp groups have calculated that each full-time person will be £2,500 extra. I wouldn't
Per year?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind so much if they got all of that, but they're not gonna. We can't give it all to them because it's going. So we're having to just factor in what our wages bill will look like next year, and productivity, I think, is the phrase.
Yes. There's also the almost stealth tax, isn't there, of the change in the thresholds for NI contributions.
That's it. We're lucky enough to employ from teenager right the way through. So we've got some amazing teenagers. But of course, that level of where they maybe didn't make £9,000 previously and now may make £5,000, that's going to put them into that bracket.
Minimum wage, does that affect you?
We don't tend to do minimum wage. We've always done living wage or above. And but as that changes, there's an expectation with the team that they don't want to get left behind. So yes, there'll definitely be a cost there.
Another aspect of the budget, which hasn't been talked about as much because it's been overshadowed by some of the other increases, has been the effects of car taxation, and particularly with double cab pickups, which was strongly resisted when the Conservatives tried to bring it in earlier in 2024, resisted so much that they actually dropped the proposal. It's been reintroduced in the budget this time round. How much of an impact do you think that will have?
I think that's going to be huge. I think that's going to be huge on people that have service vehicles for their job, for what they do. And that's not just farming. That's in all sorts of walks of life where this one vehicle was suitable for purpose. Now all of a sudden it's going to be treated as a car.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at our own business, we have a crew van. It's a 6-seater because 3 in a van isn't enough people for us. We've often got bigger crew than that.
Yeah.
And then you look at the fact that we need to transport a lot of kit, but
I'm sure.
so cameras, tripods, that sort of thing.
That lovely stuff.
Yeah, but so a crew vehicle is perfect for us, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many people realise that how serious this rule change is, because it hits us in several ways. First of all, there's the benefit in kind payment that would be relevant.
Right.
Then there's the capital allowance change, because it's going to be treated as a car from now on, not a commercial vehicle. So you can't claim the same rates of capital allowance. And thirdly, because it's not a commercial vehicle, you can't reclaim the VAT. And all of those charges have got to be recovered. And with vehicles having risen so much over the past 4 years, that's going to be a lot of money every year on our bills. And it's really not getting the exposure that deserves.
No,
and I
you're
imagine that loads of farmers across the country are going to be hit with this.
Absolutely. And if you think about that a step back to the supply chain, supply for that sort of vehicle potentially could drop like a stone overnight. And you think of other things apart from towing for a farmer, for example. You think to yourself, what else can we use? And that's where the resilience of, okay, what can we do to improve?
Yeah, and it's all of this leads to one outcome, as far as I can see. Food is going to cost more.
It's got to, and unfortunately, it hits people in the pocket. I can't believe that in supermarkets they're having to tag meat.
Yeah,
Who ever thought that would be a thing?
it's amazing, isn't it?
Security tagging.
Yeah, and let's go a little bit lighter here. What about Jeremy Clarkson? What effect has Jeremy Clarkson had on the farming community, and how is he viewed amongst your colleagues?
In general, he's been transformational in getting the message to the general public about the fact that, yes, he had a big farm. Yes, they thought he had a lot of money. But what happened was he got his hands dirty, all weathers, all winter, and turned around, looked at all the rafts of legislation and went, Charlie, why have I got no money at the end of this? Nobody really, I don't think many people realised that. They all thought farmers just had loads of money.
I know that Clarkson's farm is made for good television in the same way as Top Gear was before it, and the Grand Tour. Clarkson is a master of storytelling. Like him or loathe him, he knows how to tell a story. And, some of the things are a little bit staged, but the core messaging is correct.
It is. And as I said before, my dad, 88, he's got Amazon Prime now. So because he used to come round on a Sunday morning and watch 2 episodes on the first series, and now he's actually watching it himself. And as a farmer who never really read books, fiction books, ever, he's read 3 of their books. Caleb, we worship you as well.
And who's your favourite character then?
Oh, gosh, I've got to take my hat off to his wife.
Yeah?
On a number of levels.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, she's his wife. But recently, you've seen an episode out there where she has been out there in freezing rain, cold, applying logic, practicality, sense, and pushing the boundaries a bit in the shop. Love her.
I think I've got to say Gerald. Actually, it just makes me it just makes me laugh whenever you see him on there. He's a star.
I know. And why is it we all try really hard to keep up with what it is he's saying?
Yeah.
When on the back of our minds, it's saying, "You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it."
No, it's terrific, isn't it? And, but it also, the programme has a serious side that sums up the red tape that he has faced. Yeah. And, I can understand it from some perspectives in the local community, but the farming community around him, he's been like a godsend to them, hasn't he, in trying to use products developed by them or produced by them.
Yeah, he has. He's, some of the stories he's highlighted about, how things can be changed overnight, how he's got the money to be able to try and develop things. He's even showed some farmers that, if you put in mushrooms, you can probably do this. I'll show you how not to do it, and then I'll show you how to do it. And the hawkstone and, the different items that he does, I think, he's rallied for his area. He's rallied for the country. And for that, he could have got it so differently wrong, and he didn't. He's got it right, and he's even shared figures. Caleb saying, "Well, I've put all this in," and he's bringing in environmental things like how you plant two different plants together to complement each other, and so he's also opening everyone's eyes to new things.
It's a series that's going to run for at least another couple, and it's gaining traction more and more. And I think this budget is actually going to increase the viewership, because I think more and more people are going to pay attention and say, well, actually, what's this all about? Because he's obviously been at the forefront of campaigning for farmers here.
Yeah, no, he turned up in London there, and that was brilliant for him to do that. It's what he needs. He's found a new voice, and it's a voice we're very grateful for.
A campaign like yours needs a figurehead voice. Otherwise, it just gets ignored. But you can't really ignore Clarkson, like him or not. You just can't ignore him. I don't think he allows it. Yeah.
No, so that balance between, farming, farm diversification, which is what Farmer Palmer's is all about, the legislation and the balance of everything that we all have to do, he's showing it all on TV, mainstream, which is brilliant.
We're right at the end of 2024, and it's been a volatile year across the globe. What's in store for Farmer Palmer's during 2025?
Oh, well, I think focusing really on entertaining and looking after and listening to our customer needs. We put in a massive water play last year. I think, I'm not quite sure. I can't really say too much about whether we've got any extras, planned in.
But you might have to come back and tell me more.
Yeah, at the end of the day, delivering the best. You watch a little one running across the yard, looking behind them. Well, I can't do that. I bet you can't do that either without falling over. And watching how they grow in confidence, come back and back. That's what we need to be doing.
Is that what gives you the buzz?
Yeah, we just spend our time on helping be a second home. That's always been our wish. Be a second home for local families and let's just do it right.
Sandra, it's been great having you in, and thanks very much for coming in. And you're going to have to come back and tell me what you're doing in 2025. I'm going to follow up on that. So that's it for this week's episode of the Leading Lives podcast. Next week, we hope to be joined by a leading person from one of Britain's favourite charities. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be back with you then. Bye for now.